I want you to think about this question before we dig into communication. What would you do if you were suddenly dropped into another country where no one spoke your language? Not only does no one speak your language, but their signs, gestures, and customs are completely foreign to you. You just don't understand any of them. So you've been dropped into this public place and you're surrounded by people and you really, really need to use the bathroom. How would you get that need met? Without the ability to use communication to meet that need, would you then rely on behavior to get that need met? Of course you would, because there's no other way. This is why so many children with autism engage in challenging behavior. They aren't bad kids, they just don't know how to get their need met in a more appropriate way. So, this is why we're going to talk about communication, and we're going to break it up into all of the different pieces and talk about why each of the pieces are so important. Let's get started. Being a parent is hard. Being a parent of a child with autism sometimes feels overwhelming. Communication delays are common in children with autism, which makes parenting even more difficult. Many parents say they want their child to speak, but what is it they really want? Sure, speaking is the easiest form of communication for us, but what if their child can't speak? They want their child to be happy, healthy, independent, successful, and accepted. They want their child to lead a full life, to fulfill their hopes and dreams. Communication is a gateway to achieving all of those things. Expressive communication refers to the way your child interacts with those around him to fulfill his needs, share his thoughts, and engage socially with others. Although speech is the most common form of expressive communication, many children who have difficulty with speech can learn to use alternative methods of expressive communication, such as sign language, PECs, and communication apps. Let's take a look at a real-life example. Although each child develops communication differently and there is no guarantee that speech develops for all children, many children do develop at least some spoken language. Alternative communication methods provide a structured teaching approach and the opportunity to teach the importance of communication for your child. Jenny was a 3-year-old with autism. Although she was often a happy little girl, she would cry every time she wanted something. Her mother, Sarah, was frustrated for her daughter and didn't know how best to help her. Sarah hoped that Jenny would one day talk, but in the meantime, she did her best to keep her happy by anticipating all of her needs. Jenny's pediatrician referred her for ABA therapy, and Sarah shared her concerns with the BCBA. The BCBA recommended introducing an alternative form of communication so Jenny wouldn't have to cry to communicate. The BCBA assured Sarah that giving Jenny another way to communicate didn't mean that Jenny would never speak. Although there was no way to know if Jenny would speak in the future, research shows that children who use alternative forms of communication often also develop at least some speech. Sarah was a little apprehensive, but decided that teaching Jenny to communicate effectively was what was really important. The BCBA worked with Jenny to teach her how to use the tablet to ask for things she really wanted. Jenny loved her cup and many different toys, and she quickly learned how to get what she wanted without crying. Although she sometimes got frustrated when she didn't know how to ask for something new, Jenny used the tablet throughout her day with a lot of independence. One day, Jenny and her mom were in the kitchen. Sarah held Jenny's cup in her hand with her favorite juice. Jenny's tablet was on the counter, just out of reach, and rather than try to reach for it, Jenny said, "Cup." Sarah was amazed to hear Jenny speak and immediately handed over her cup. Over time, Jenny gradually learned to say more and more words, and by the time she was 6, she was speaking in complete sentences. Although she continues to use the tablet when words fail her, Jenny uses speech for most of her communication. She even enjoys having conversations with her peers. Although some of the details of the story, like the names, are fiction, the story is fundamentally true. There are many ways to communicate. You just need to help your child find the method that works for him or her. At this point, you have probably gotten pretty good at figuring out what your child wants, so you might be asking yourself, why should I go through the process of teaching communication if I already understand what my child wants most of the time? Communication for your child is so much more than just getting what he wants. It opens doors to new opportunities for your child, allows your child to communicate exactly what he wants, eliminates guessing games, allows your child to interact and build relationships with others, reduces problem behaviors that are caused by an inability to communicate. One of the strategies that makes ABA so effective is that it breaks complex skills down into smaller parts that are easier to teach and easier for your child to learn. Expressive communication is made up of many different pieces, including requesting. In ABA, we call this manding. Spontaneous vocal behavior, which refers to speech sounds or words your child says on his own. Labeling. In ABA, we call this tacting. And responding to your communication or that of someone else. In ABA, we call this intraverbals.